Hello everybody, my name is Dringy and welcome to Pokémon Shield. Today, we are taking part in a novelty online tournament where the only move we're allowed to use is Metronome. For those of you who do not know, Metronome picks a move completely at random from the game. So you could get Tail Whip, you could get Hyper Beam, or you could even get Self-Destruct. So I decided to spend a couple of hours making the most chaotic team I possibly could. Leading the fight is Mega Goblin, a genetic experiment that went terribly wrong. Following up is Huggatron 2022, the latest and most deadly model in the Huggatron catalogue. Next, I have manifested my own ego into Pokemon form specifically for this tournament. And I had a bit of money to spare, so I purchased a B2 Spirit stealth plane from the US government. Our heavy hitter is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who has painted himself blue for some reason. And finally, we have Clive. He's actually our ride, and due to a misunderstanding, he thinks he's on the team, and none of us really had the heart to tell him that he couldn't be on the team. So, welcome aboard, Clive. Yeah, sorry, Sailor Moon. Maybe next time? For the first fight, I lead with Mega Goblin, keeping my ego and Huggatron in my back pocket. Their first Pokemon is a Miltank, but on their very first turn, they swap to Grimmsnarl. And when I see this pop up, I feel my heart sink in my chest. Let me explain why. Mega Goblin has the ability Prankster. This ability causes status moves to have their speed priority increased by 1, but these moves will always fail against dark types. Because Metronome is a status move in this game, Mega Goblin will always go first, but he'll always fail to attack a dark type. Now I did notice that they had a dark type on their team, but I thought that their Grimmsnarl would have the same ability. Therefore, neither of our Grimmsnarls would be able to attack each other, and neither of us would be at a disadvantage. So when I saw this pop up, I knew that the enemy Grimmsnarl had the ability Frisk. This just reveals my held item to them, which isn't super useful, but it does mean that they can actually attack me, which is a heck of a lot better than I can do. This basically meant I was one Pokemon down for the entire fight. The only way I was going to win this fight was if I got lucky. And that's exactly what happened. I swapped to my ego and they swapped to Miltank. My ego gets damaging move after damaging move, taking Miltank to about a quarter of their original health. My opponent is then forced to switch into their third Pokemon, Clefable. My ego then follows up by burning her, causing damage every single turn and halving their attack power to boot. But my ego was looking a little bruised and I was a little curious, so I swapped out to Mega Goblin again, and predictably they swapped out to Grimmsnarl. I then swap out to Huggatron, and I think I just confused them at this point. They didn't swap right away, and I managed to hit a critical Leaf Blade to take out half of their health. They then swapped to Miltank again, and that's when Huggatron uses Aqua Ring. This provides a little bit of healing every single turn, which is really useful. With this healing effect, Huggatron manages to finish off both Miltank and Clefable, leaving just Grimmsnarl left. Now the advantage was mine, but with just a little bit of luck, they could still win this fight. Fortunately, I had just figured out a good use for Mega Goblin. You see, in Pokemon you can only use a move so many times in battle. If you run out of usable moves, the game will force you to use Struggle. This has a lot of recoil damage, so although I couldn't attack Grimmsnarl with Mega Goblin, I could try to force them to use up all of their moves. This stalling worked way too well. On Mega Goblin's second turn, he uses Substitute. This creates a puppet that absorbs damage on Mega Goblin's behalf. This puppet survived for 7 whole turns, and they didn't even manage to kill it. Mega Goblin just got unlucky and used Self-Destruct, which was totally deserved after I drew the fight out for an extra 5 minutes. I send in my ego to see if they can finish off, and they're looking a little worse for wear. Snorlax gets super close at taking them out with Reversal, and Grimmsnarl gets super close at taking me out with a Magical Leaf. But at this point, their Grimmsnarl finally runs out of moves, and takes us both out with one last struggle. And because Huggatron was still alive this whole time, I won the match! I did not deserve to win that fight, like at all. I'm pretty sure their Frisk ability Grimmsnarl was specifically there to counter my Prankster strategy. And despite this, I managed to win, just by pure dumb luck. So, with luck in mind, let me give you a brief overview of my second battle. For this one I led with my ego and had Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Clive in reserve. This battle started off so slowly, it took 10 minutes for the first Pokemon to faint. Fortunately it was their Gengar, but my ego wasn't looking good. It was low on health, out of moves and paralysed to boot. With one last struggle, my ego fainted. But then their Snorlax on their very first turn, before I could send out another Pokemon for them to attack, did this. This pretty much won me the match. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson pretended to play nice at first, but unfortunately Dwayne does not know the meaning of mercy. And with that, I had 2 undeserving victories under my belt. My third fight was so frustrating. My opponent spent absolutely ages taking their turns. And I mean ages. They only have one move to choose from. That move is Metronome. I know what move you're going to pick. After a few turns, I got my revenge. Their Machamp uses Skill Swap. This swaps our abilities, so Machamp gets Mega Goblin's Prankster ability, which, as you remember from the first fight, stops Metronome working against Dark types. And because Mega Goblin is a Dark type, they couldn't attack me. There is something really satisfying seeing this happen to someone else. Fast forward a few minutes and we have B2 versus Hitmonchan. During this part, Hitmonchan uses perhaps the best move in the entire tournament, Imprison. It prevents the opponent from using any move that the user knows. As the only move in the tournament is Metronome, I'm not able to use my only move. I tried to swap out to Huggertron to break the effect, but it turns out the effect is actually on Hitmonchan, so none of my Pokemon could use their moves. In this situation, the game forces me to use Struggle when I try to attack. This does a quarter of the Pokemon's max health in recoil damage, so I was about to lose a lot of health trying to take out Hitmonchan. Fortunately, the God of Luck is on my side. After just 2 struggles, Hitmonchan uses Flip Turn. This forces them to swap out and breaks the Imprison effect. Later on, I got another stroke of luck. B2, with only 6 HP left, manages to take out their Togekiss from almost full health. I then tried to stall out Hitmonchan by Dynamaxing, at which point they finally had enough and resigned. Somehow I had managed to luck into my 3rd victory, but this 4th battle would prove to be the closest battle I've ever done. The battle started with their Gengar taking out my Mega Goblin in record time, using a combination of Hydro Cannon and Electro Ball. This person was not messing around. The moment I was a Pokemon down, they swapped to Dusknoir, who has the ability Pressure. This doubles my move usage, causing me to run out of moves faster. Unfortunately for them, they used Roleplay, which overrides their ability with mine. But they were really keen on this whole pressure strategy, so they swapped out and back in again to regain their ability. However, I got so close to killing Gengar during this swap that I consider the whole interaction a plus for me. This was until Dusknoir the Brave used Lunar Dance. This is a pretty rare move. It sacrifices the user and completely heals the next Pokemon they send out. And so I dubbed the Gengar the Resurrected. The battle between us raged for 10 minutes more, until I finally met their last Pokemon, Machamp the Undying. He was named as such because he used Ingrain, which heals him every turn, and I just could not kill him. Eventually, Huggertron had to sacrifice his own life to inflict a curse. Even with this, it took 4 whole turns for Machamp to die, but it did just leave my ego versus Gengar the Resurrected. The problem is, my ego only had 2 moves left. He used them to take Gengar to half health, but with his moves gone, he had to use Struggle. And he had to struggle again. Against this opponent of pure chaos, with one last struggle, Gengar was defeated. But my ego had struggled his last. The match ended in a draw, with no survivors to speak of this legendary battle. I played a total of 11 battles altogether. Some of them I won, some of them I lost, and some of them took so long that we ran out of time. There were some pretty amusing Pokemon move combinations as well. like Munchlax using Spore here, or Mega Goblin rising up and hovering in midair while using Oblivion Wing like some kind of satanic ritual. But my favourite has to be my ego using Darkest Lariat. This just lives rent-free in my head now. My favourite battle has to be this one against Cleffa, Clefairy and Clefable. Not a great team tactically, but definitely the cutest. On the first turn, Mega Goblin uses Jaw Lock on Cleffa, and her ability Cute Charm kicks in. This makes Mega Goblin fall in love with her, and finally something pays off. At the very start of all of this, I gave Mega Goblin a Destiny Knot for this exact purpose, and it never paid off until just now. Destiny Knot forces the opponent Pokemon to also fall in love, and so for the next 2 turns, both Pokemon stare lovingly into each other's eyes, and because Mega Goblin used Jaw Lock, neither Pokemon could be switched out. They didn't attack each other for an entire 4 turns. And I know what you're thinking, Mega Goblin and Cleffa just don't work together. But that's where you're wrong. Hear me out. Cleffa may look young, but she's level 50. She's cute, shy, and constantly being outshined by her sisters. Meanwhile, Mega Goblin is a monster. On the outside, that is. Cleffa is clever and perceptive. She sees past this exterior and realizes that Mega Goblin has a mega heart. From here on out, Mega Goblin and Cleffa play together. They ate together. And they watched the sunset together. And they lived happily ever after. Until Huggatron gets jealous after losing his favourite hugging partner. He plots a scheme with the help of Clefairy and Clefable to drive a wedge between the two. Will their plan succeed, or will Mega Goblin and Cleffa's love prove too strong for anyone to break? Find out next time on The Mega Adventures of Mega Goblin, featuring Cleffa, directed by Clive. Huh? What's that? How did the battle go? Well... yeah, I think I might have won.